direct misfire, talking many war games. Bensome and Spoon are taking aim. Comment, like, and subscribe today, keeping you notified and up to date.
Hello champs, and welcome once again to another one of our army breakdowns. Joining me today as always is Spoon as we tackle the Empire of Dust. So pull up a seat, grab a bevo, and let's get into it. How you going, Spoon?
Yeah, not too bad. Yourself?
Yeah, it's doing much better than the last recording. Barry White voice has gone. Feeling a lot better.
That's good news.
Yes, it is. Alright, what's been going on? Empire of Dust, that's what we're doing. How about we start off with you going through the story, the background, okay?
So here goes. This is a brief rundown of the fluff for Empire of Dust. For those that are interested, the Empire of Dust are located to the west of Ophidia, and this is where the broken towns and cities of the once great Empire of the Ammonites exists. So this all began in the Time of Light, a little beyond the region that's now known as the Cracked Lands. Those that lived there were forced to migrate north due to drought and plague. As they settled, they began to trade with other noble races in the near region, so the elves, kingdoms of men and dwarves, and they become quite influential in the economic and political stability of the southern region. After a while, the Ammonites started dabbling in necromancy, and they believed in an existence after death. They were raising their most loyal warriors to serve again, and it was known as purification. Their new lands started to dry up, and the art of purification had begun to spread. More dead were being raised from their rest, and no consent was given from the families of the dead. It was just kind of ignored. The dead that were raised were becoming slaves for the living. The noble houses plunged even deeper into darkness, and the cities of the empire began to echo with the groans of the dead. The people of the towns and cities sort of feared the sun setting because the nobles and their private armies were turning on each other. As the Ammonite Empire began to consume itself, the princes of the north decided to gather their people and escape. These princes were seen as the saviors and were named the god kings of the people. This journey had taken its toll on the young realm, and it was quite vulnerable. The god kings decided to use necromancy once again to strengthen their realm, but this time the motives were a little different. They had strict laws restricting the learning and practice of necromancy, and the empire grew and they become the masters of undeath. The god kings sort of cast their eyes towards the ancient empire they'd left behind, and they thought the madness had to be stopped. So the god kings gathered together their most trusted magi and summoned a lethal sandstorm that engulfed the Ammonite armies, tearing flesh from bones, driving them back to the wastes. Plagues of insects devoured the living so thoroughly that as the swarm passed, only bone remained. The Ophidian curse condemned an entire civilization to eternal torment of undeath, and this is why the Empire of Dust exists. That end.
Okay, so that was that. Now let's get into the army-wide special rules. So the Empire of Dust are an evil alignment army, and the first rule is the Curse of Undeath. So this gives the units marked as such Life Leech 1. And they've also got Casket of the Damned, which is a unit upgrade. And once per game, when that unit is targeted by a surge spell, you get to roll an extra 5 dice. That counts towards the surge result. And you have to declare before rolling, so you can't cheat and say otherwise. And then once that's used, if you've got a marker, just to say that they don't have the casket anymore, so you don't forget, that would be a good idea. But it makes for very fast undead.
Yeah.
Great upgrade. Okay, how about let's go through the army itself.
Yep, not a worry. Just a word of warning before we go any further. Some of this is going to cross over with our undead.
Yes, since
So
they're both undead.
We may repeat some of the same magic items and same stats and whatnot for some of the units.
but we have very fabulous voices, so I'm sure you'll
Just
enjoy.
listen to us.
Okay, take it away.
Start with the first entry. We've got Skeleton Warriors. These guys are your sword and board fanatics. Speed 5, melee 5, no ranged attack, 4 up defense, 10, 12, and 25 attacks because they come in troop regiment and horde. Nerve is fearless 12, 16, and 23, and points 65, 90, 150. Their special rules: shambling, and they can take the casket of the dam for 10 points if you wish.
So, very decent block troop. Melee 5's not great. Defense 4 is okay, but they're cheap for what they are, and they're fearless.
Yep.
Casket, would you use it?
Probably not, because I'd be using these guys as an anvil if I was going to take them.
I think you must be hard pressed if you're going out attacking and being offensive with the warriors, because melee 5 is not going to do much.
I mean, if you can get a flank or something, it might be worthwhile, but
and a couple of
better
hordes
units
for 150 points each at fearless 23 is nothing to sniff at.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably not the casket though.
Yeah. Magic items, would you give them anything?
Bibu, I probably wouldn't. I'd rather keep them cheap. I might just stick a 5-point item on them so they can do something when they're not doing anything.
Yeah.
Or the bomb.
That's not a bad one. That's probably one of the better units actually in this army to put it on, I think. From memory. Yep. Alright.
Next.
Move on to the Skelly Spearmen. So these are the sword and board brothers with
Spears.
longer weapons. Yeah. These guys, like the sword and board guys, come in troop regiment horde. Same-ish stats. The attacks changed to 10, 15, and 30. Nerve is the same, and the points go up: 75, 105, 175. Special rules: phalanx and shambling. And they can also take the casket.
I would rather take these guys than warriors. It's not a huge point investment. So you've got something a bit more defensive with the phalanx and more attacks. It probably won't equate to many wounds.
Extra wounds,
but
more damage.
It is more. And I think also the psychology, if someone asks how many attacks does that have, and you say 30 for the horde, instead of this 25, which is standard, it might give them pause. But I'd rather take these guys. I'll take the warriors if I've got points issues and want to fit other things in.
Yep. Makes sense.
Nice defensive block. Keep them defensive.
I definitely would. I wouldn't bother with magic items or caskets on either of those units. I don't think it's worthwhile.
I wouldn't either. Next.
Yep. You want to do the next one?
Sure. These guys, the Revenants, so these are a bit of a step up in terms of combat ability. They come in troop regiment and horde. Speed 5 like everything else. Melee 4, so they punch a bit better. No range. Defense 5, which is good. And 10, 12, 25 attacks, which is fairly standard. Their nerves slightly better than the warriors and spearmen. They've got 13, 17, 24 fearless. And as you'd expect, you pay a bit more for it. 85, 120, and 200 for the horde. These guys only have shambling, nothing fancy there, and you can give them crushing 1 to drop their defense to 4 instead, and that upgrades, or if you want to call it an upgrade, is free, and also can take the casket. Thoughts?
I have ummed and ahed about taking the CS1 for free on these guys so many times, and I think if I put them in an army list again, I definitely would do it.
At all levels, or is there
only at horde, probably.
Yeah.
Troop and regiment.
There's not enough attacks to warrant, and I think defense 4 they'll just get shot off easier.
They will, yeah. Troop and regiment, I'd probably keep them at defense 5. Then it comes down to what magic items you want to put on. Casket's definitely worth them if you're going to take that extra CS1 to get them into combat quicker.
I mean, defense 5 regiment with fearless 17 is pretty good. Just as a little stop block.
When you're comparing these guys with another unit entry that's a little further down, I think if you're going to go a regiment, you might as well go the better regiment, which you pay a little
All
more
comes
for.
down to points though,
Yeah. Yep.
because there's a bit of a difference there.
Yeah, there is a bit of a difference, but
And they've got life leech 1 as well, so that kind of helps them kick around a bit longer. I like the sound of them.
yeah, they're all right. There's nothing wrong with them.
These are your mid-infantry.
Yep, definitely. Magic items, would you take anything on them?
Ooh, I probably wouldn't take anything offensive unless I was going the crushing 1 to make them hit a bit harder.
Yep.
Maybe phalanx, but that's fairly expensive. If I was going horde, I'd put that on them, the 35-point item.
I was going to say phalanx, or even if I was going down the CS1 route, I'd go for the extra brew of strength on top of that. So
Okay, CS2.
yeah,
That'd be pretty good on a horde. Yeah.
pretty hard hitting.
Yep. And if that was the case, I'd also probably take the casket.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you've got if you're making them aggressive, you've got to take the casket to get them in there quicker before they take too many wounds.
I don't think you would, in any situation, take casket on a more defensive unit that you're thinking of in terms of roles for your army. I don't see how that would work defensively.
No.
Doesn't make much sense.
Nope. Next one.
Next one. Let's go to the skeleton archers.
Yep.
So much like the warriors, speed 5, worse melee with 6 up. Have a standard range of 5 up, defense is 3 as you'd expect for a ranged unit, attacks is 8, 10 and 20 because they also come in troop regiment hordes. Standard nerve like the warriors and spearmen at 12, 16, 23 fearless, and the points are 75, 100 and 165 for the horde. They have bows, so 24 inch shooting and shamble, and casket is the only option that they can take. So it's I don't know, 75-point troop would be okay.
Great. They're not too bad at troop point levels. I think we went over this in the undead list for deployment drops and that sort of thing. Don't expect them to take a whole heap of wounds off something if you're taking them at that size. We'll take off a couple of wounds here and there, and that's probably all they're going to do.
And that's all you want them to do. You don't want them to winning your games, but helping out. Yeah.
Regiment and horde. Horde I'd consider. Regiment, I don't know.
It seems it's too expensive to be a drop, and doesn't have enough attacks for the offensive side. Instead, I would go their cousins, the skeleton crossbowmen, which is another entry that we have. The stats are exactly the same except for the points, which is 85, 115 and 190. And that gives them crossbows, so it's the same range, but piercing 1 and reload with the casket option. This is probably a better way to go if you've got the points. I mean, it's not much more, but piercing 1 helps. I wouldn't be moving them about, so I don't think the reload would matter too much. And if you want them to move forward, if you're desperate, just shamble them and then shoot.
Yep. Yeah, that's probably not a bad idea. These guys, the crossbowmen probably would share this similar magic items, I think, between the two units as well. If you were going to put them on there.
4 wins on the horde might be okay, if they're just sitting back and shooting.
Yep. Are crossbows longer range?
No, it's 24 inch.
Heavy crossbows are longer, aren't they?
Yes.
Yep. All right, okay. Yeah, that's probably not a bad one, so you can sit them up the back somewhere and shoot from further back.
Extra piercing. You don't want to go too high, because otherwise you might as well just buy the large infantry one.
Archers. Yeah. Yep. +1 to hit's another one if you're not taking the monstrous infantry or large infantry. There's a couple of items that these guys can both take. Anything else you'd put on them?
No.
Nope.
No. Maybe the scrying gem.
Oh yeah, something that benefits the whole army.
Yeah.
Yep. So you know where to put them down, I guess. That's probably not a bad one.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move into the next one. The next unit entry is mummies. They come in troops and regiments. Speed 5, melee 4, no ranged attack. Defense 5, attacks 10 and 12. They're fearless at 14 and 18 and points at 120 and 170. These guys come with CS2, regeneration 5 up and shambling, and you can give these guys a casket.
I think it's a bit of an odd one just because they have CS2, not a lot of attacks. So, but the defense 5 and regen 5, so they can block up and hold pretty well.
They can take a hit.
But they
Slash
can,
18's
yeah.
slash 18's nothing to laugh at.
No, so it's a good little block there for 170. If you have some good smarts and trying to get them into a flank, then the CS2 can really pummel there. But I don't think 10 or 12 attacks is going to do much, so I wouldn't be fanging them forward hoping to kill things.
No.
But 2 regiments, 170. But then, yeah, I think Revenants at 120, so 50 points less for the same sort of anvil. The nerve drops by 1.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
I mean, sure, you don't have regen, but...
Yeah, you're paying for the regen and stuff that... Like, regen will keep them alive that little bit longer. That's why I like them.
But 50 points a regiment is a lot. You can get another unit if you took 2 Revenant regiments instead of 2 mummies.
Could, yep.
So that's something that you got to toss up.
You got to weigh it up. Yeah. Yep.
Casket situational.
Yeah, I'd agree. Comes down to your army structure.
Yeah.
Are you using them as an anvil or something that potentially can get a flank?
Any items on these guys?
Brew of Courage is the first one that comes to mind for me.
Just to make sure that they stick around.
Yeah, so makes your regen work a little bit harder. So they go to a /19 instead of /18 or /15 if you're only taking a troop. But on a troop, I'd be pretty reluctant to put anything on them.
No. Dragoned item might be okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Makes people want to charge them. Otherwise you're going to get some burnies.
Yeah. Even that, I mean, how many times are you going to be able to shoot it before they're charging into combat or being charged? Because once they take a hit, they can't shoot anyway. I don't know. They're too slow, I think, maybe, to have that. I mean, it could work. Don't know.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Every time I face them, when you've had them on the table, I've kind of been put off charging them. So that's something that you got to think of.
Yeah, just because they stick around for a while or tend to. If they get double charged or triple charged, it's all over.
Yeah, so it's a case of lining it up, but then you've got the rest of the army to think about, and that's what the game's about.
Yeah.
Alright, let's get into some cavalry.
Yes.
Starting off with the skeleton cav. Troop and regiment, these guys. Speed 9, which is pretty good. Melee 5, defense 4, 7 and 14 attacks, with fearless 13, 16. 85 points and 130 for the regiment. These are nimble, which is good. Shamble, which is not good, considering. And thunderous charge 1, and they can have the casket. So these seem like light cav.
That don't really act like light cav.
Yeah, I mean, they're cheap enough. Not a huge number of attacks, and only thunder 1. So they can still hit stuff, so you can't just ignore them. Speed 9 and nimble, I mean, I think that's okay. I mean, unless you're fanging forward just straight, I don't think that matters too much with the shamble, because most people will move forward, turn, and then that's it. And 9 inches is a good chunk of movement.
I think the nimble's alright when you're charging the 18 inches for your double move. I don't know, when you don't get to much, the nimble doesn't really pay for itself all that often. It depends how you're using them too. Are they going to be chaff unit, or are you going to take a regiment and hope to actually do a bit of damage?
Yeah. I mean, regiments would be okay if you've got nothing else to punch. Nah, thunder 1. You have to be aiming for the flanks.
Ever since they had written this list, I wondered why I would use these guys. I'm still a bit stumped. Troops maybe, regiment I've just got no idea.
130. I mean, when you consider you've got worm riders, that's almost 100 points more though.
Oh yeah, they get expensive.
You don't have a lot of cav.
I don't think you need it.
The speed 9 though, and for 85 points, I think it's okay.
Yeah, for a troop is fine. If you're going to use them as chaff, that's fine. Or something that can get around the sides and surge into a flank. That's not too bad. Hitting on 5s though.
Yeah, that's a bit naff. If you're hoping to do a lot of damage.
Yeah.
But hitting on 5s and say 28 attacks is okay.
Oh, if you do it with a regiment, that's not too bad, yeah. I don't know. I just don't see the point. If you're going to take a regiment, you've got to take a casket with these guys.
Yes, you do. It is essential to make sure that you get those flanks.
Yep.
And that's all that you'd be using it for, because you might turn, move, turn, and so you might be, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 inches out of a flank, because you're not going to be able to zip right in there to the corner, so casket helps there. Yeah.
Magic items, would you give them anything?
No.
No.
Not worth it.
Alright, let's move on to their bros with bows.
Bros with bows.
Yes, so these guys also come in troops and regiments. Same speed, they've got a melee of 6, ranged attack of 5, defense 3, attacks are the same, nerve is the same, and the points go up a little bit at 95 and 145, so you get bows, nimble, and shambling.
Regiments. I think I'm better off with a couple of troops.
Yeah, troops, if anything, and even then, seven shots hitting on 5s doesn't really do a lot for me either. 95 points. I don't know, I just don't understand.
It's more that these guys can now take objectives and get across the board, whereas your archer hordes and whatnot aren't going to be doing that.
Yep, that's true.
So if you're going mobile, this would be great.
Yep.
I wouldn't put any items on them.
Nah, not worth it.
No.
Alrighty.
Okay, enslaved guardians. We're getting to the bigger boys now. These guys are pretty mint. They are regiment or horde, large infantry, speed 6, melee 4, defense 5, 9 and 18 attacks, which is pretty standard. Fearless 14, 17 at 160 and 245 points for the horde. Crushing 2, shambling and windblast 5. Nice little tasty treat there. Also have the option of taking the casket. I think these guys are fabo.
These guys are amazing.
Even, I probably wouldn't take the regiments because I think it's too expensive for the nerve. 14 nerve, defense 5 for 160 points.
Yep.
I don't think it's doing a whole lot there. Well, I would take mummies for crushing 2 also. 14 nerve at 120 points.
Maybe in smaller point games they might be alright.
I'd take mummies instead for the same thing. Because they're both defense 5, both nerve 14, mummies are 40 points cheaper. They just don't have wind blast.
Yeah. Yep.
And
that's
they've got
understandable.
regen.
Yes, they do.
Don't. So take the hordes for some punchies, I think. I think wind blast is great. Maybe you could do a whole bunch of regiments and just wind blast everything.
Yeah, that'd be a pain in the ass, wouldn't it?
Yeah, if you
Well,
got
it only
some
has an
hordes
18-inch range though.
Yeah, as they're getting closer, push them back. Go away, push them back. That would be interesting to watch, maybe annoying to play, but
Oh yeah, it would be.
someone give it a go and report back. That'd be great.
These guys are one of my favourite units in the game. You can use them to keep your big Guardian Archers safe by wind blasting units backwards, pushing units out of the way if you can get on a flank or something, so you can ping off little individual characters that are hiding. What else can you do?
That's it.
No. You could push units off objectives in final
in the last turn, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you take a couple of them,
big one. Yeah.
Just make sure that they get pushed off. That's a sneaky,
Magic items?
sneaky trick. Yeah.
It is, isn't it?
Nothing shooty because they got wind blast.
I think elite.
Elite could do. You could go extra crushing if you wanted.
I'd personally just go elite, so you're getting the extra attacks if you're rolling 1s and the wind
elite
blast.
Or vicious. Either or.
Yeah, I wouldn't even bother with vicious. You don't get to re-roll wind blast.
Yeah, that's true. Good point. Well played. But are you only taking 1 horde?
At the moment.
Okay. I would take 3.
So would I if I had. I've got enough for 2 hordes. I got rid of 6 because I didn't think I needed 3 of them.
Yeah, that's a bit too much.
Yeah.
These guys are pretty punchy. They're very, very good.
Yeah. Take casket on them. Well worth it.
Yeah, if you go and punch, you got to take casket. It also makes people think, oh, that guy's got a casket. He could surge in from the sides and get me in the kidneys. But enough about them. Let's go with their other bow bros, the enslaved guardian archers. Speed 6, melee 5, range 5, defense 4. So as you'd expect there. Same attacks, 9, 18, same nerve, 14, 17 fearless, and the points are the same. What does that give you? It gives you heavy crossbows, so 36-inch range, piercing 2. They have crushing 1. They don't crush as much as the guardians, and they reload shamble and casket option. Again, just like the ogre shooters, these are pretty sweet with the +1 to hit.
Yep.
36-inch range, hitting on 4s, piercing 2. Elite also works. Reroll the 1s if you want to make them a little cheaper.
Yep.
If you got two hordes of these guys, put one with a +1, one with elite, and annoy everyone. Be that guy that no one wants to play.
The jerk.
Yeah.
I think when you see these guys, you've almost got to compare them to your crossbowmen and archers as well. I know that these guys are going to have a higher damage output, but there's also things that the enslaved guardian archers can do that the other two units cannot do.
And what is that?
They can actually fight a round of close combat.
Indeed they can. I mean, it's melee 5, but that's the same as
That's the same.
the skeletons. Crushing 1, so that's better than the skeletons.
Yeah, well,
Defense
they do
4
have a
is the
better.
same.
They have a better melee than the crossbowmen and archers at 6.
Yeah. And more attacks.
Yes.
Apart from the horde, which is 20.
It just means if you're forced to charge or countercharge if you've been charged, that they might actually do something rather than slap.
Yeah. Reload, is that a big deal?
It is and it isn't. I mean, there's games where we've played where I've had to sacrifice a round of shooting to turn. And surge, just to stop you from hitting me first. I'm sure that'll come about more often than not with flyers and whatnot, but I think they're very versatile. They can still shoot the crap out of stuff that comes towards you, and worst case scenario, if they have to duke it out. Just defense 4 is a little low. They will take a beating if they get charged first.
Yeah, I mean, with anything that has crushing or thunders, which you'd think would, if they're getting into you, they're usually pretty fast, which means it's cav or something that flies, and that usually has one of those things.
Yep.
But hopefully you shoot them off before they get there.
Yep.
Any other items other than the helping to hit?
No, that's probably the best one. Elite's good. Yeah, I mean, you could go the extra piercing if you really wanted to, but I
What
think
do you think
need to be
of
hitting
maybe sitting them in a corner and giving them the extra 12-inch?
range.
Yeah, range 48.
Well, it's a lot of board control, isn't it?
It's got to hope that
Nothing.
they've got nothing that can go in and disorder them.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's wasted.
Maybe if you've already got that scrying gem in your list, it might be worthwhile. So, I don't know. Comes down to army construction then, I think.
But you'll probably see most people just take the +1 to hit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Alright, what's next?
Move on to some large infantry, I believe.
We're already in large infantry.
Oh, we are. Sorry.
We're coming to the most confusing large infantry, the height 0 large infantry.
We've got swarms.
Yeah.
So these guys come in regiments and hordes. Speed 6, melee 5, no ranged attack. Defense 2, attacks 9 and 18. Nerve, they're fearless 12 and 15. And points 65 and 100. Height 0, shambling, and they have vanguard.
I don't see these guys doing much other than just getting in the face and sitting there with the vanguard. Because anything that hits them is damaging them.
Yep. They're great blockers.
If you've got gargoyles and you're charging into the swarms, that's a bad idea, because they're just going to sit there for turns and turns doing nothing. Learnt from experience. But a 65-point vanguarding unit is okay.
I really like the swarms. I think they're so cost effective.
Also good for blocking if you park them in front of your archers, guardian archers.
Yep.
And that prevents a charge coming through for at least a turn. And that's only 65 points.
Very, very cheap.
That's how I'd use them.
Yep. I usually just throw them in front of my combat blocks.
Just be that speed bump.
Yep.
Poor swarms.
Poor swarms. But they're cool.
If they do their job, yay swarms. Let's move on to the scavengers. These are...
Before you go, Ben.
Yes'm?
The swarms are irregular, so they don't unlock anything.
They are quite irregular, same as the scavengers. These guys are speed 10, melee 5, defense 4, 9 and 18 attacks like standard large infantry. Nerve, these guys can be wavered. 10 and 12, 13, 15 for the horde. 90 points and 135. What's so good about these guys? They fly and they have life leech 2 instead of 1. Flying 10, no shamble.
Yeah, no shamble, that's the big one. So this is why I do not understand why you'd take skeleton cavalry or skeleton arch cav.
Because skeleton archer cav can shoot and they can be shambled into the flanks.
For 90 points versus 95 or 85, you got a 20-inch charging life leech 2 unit. They're pretty good.
But they don't have the... I mean, your hitting just on the defense of the opponent though, so they've got no crushing or thunderous.
Yep.
The
They're not going to be.
cavalry has thunder, or they have bows. So, and the nerves better as well because they're fearless. The cavalry
Yeah.
and higher.
But you don't have many attacks, and you're hitting on the same value for close combat for the cav, and the ranged attack is hitting on 5. So if you're taking a troop, you're going to be hitting with 2 or 3 maybe. I just don't see the point.
I think they fill similar roles. It all depends on, as it always does, list composition, because dropping from 18 to 14 attacks, you're also dropping 5 points. Your nerve goes up to 16. That can't be wavered. Speed only drops by 1. Shambling I don't think is an issue, just because, like I said, I don't often just at the double, maybe once a game, if at all. Nimble, but fly gives you nimble. But yeah, it's a shamble in the casket is the big point of difference there, I feel. Fly's very good. Life Leech 2 is better. Scavengers are irregular. The cavalry aren't, so they're not unlocking anything.
Yeah, but are you going to be using... See, for me, I would look at other units to unlock things rather than... I know they're cheap.
I'll
But
be
if
using these guys like how I use my gargoyle, so I'll be taking regiments only. I wouldn't take the horde. Defense 4 with a low nerve of 13-15 is not going to last at all. They would be the things that I shoot at first, because you don't want flying units around in your back line.
Yep.
So they're not going to last very long. So they have to do the job of getting in the way.
Yeah, very quickly.
So a couple of regiments would be alright.
Yep.
But just writing lists with the Abyssal Dwarves, because they don't have a lot of hordes, apart from lesser golems or the big decimator units, it's hard to unlock a lot of things, so you're taking more regiments.
Yeah. You spoil for choice in this list, similar to Undead, I think.
So the irregular hurts them a little bit there. But again, that doesn't really matter if you're taking Slave Guardian archers, hordes of shooters, or revenants.
Yep.
Yeah. I'd take those in regiment form. Don't give them any items.
Keep them as cheap as possible. They're only going to die.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's their point.
Cool.
Yeah. I feel like in that way, Life Leech 2 is a bit of a waste.
It is and it isn't. It's like those silly things that happen, when your gargoyles manage to survive a combat.
Yep.
Yeah, when they manage to survive a combat, the Life Leech 2 might actually, it only has to keep them around for another turn, and that's it. I don't know.
If they survive a round of combat, they might heal too, but they're not. It's very unlikely that they survive that first round.
Yeah. But what if they decide to go chomp on a war machine after they've been hit?
Then I don't think the extra life leech is going to help.
No, I mean, if they've been say they've been charged by gargoyles, for example, right? They survive the round of combat, and then they decide to charge, because they're large infantry, they're height 2, can see over the top and charge a war machine. So they've taken wounds, they've killed the war machine, they've recovered wounds. Might not mean much, but I mean, if they're now in your back lines and hunting down characters and the likes, it could. So, like your mages and stuff only have 1 attack. I mean, they might get breath weaponed or something along that line. But that breath weapon is not hitting the rest of your army.
I just think it's negligible. If they would have had Life Leech 1 to begin with, and that's just upping it to 2, 1 point on these low nerve units.
It's very situational, but I think it's still pretty cool.
So you've got choices there for Chuff. So you've got your swarms, your scavengers, your skeleton cav troops, maybe even the archer cav troops. Take your pick. Alright, next. What are we into?
Large cav by the looks.
How about you start us off with your favourite unit? The Revenant Chariots.
These guys.
Tell me about them. Why are they...
Regiments and horde formations. They are speed 7, melee 4, defense... Let's start again. Speed 7, melee 4, ranged 5, defense 4, 8 and 16 attacks. Fearless at 14 and 17, 115 points and 175 points. So the special rules, their base size is 50 by 100. They have bows, shambling, thunderous, charge 2. They can also take the casket for an extra 10 points.
That base size is killer, bro.
Yep.
Especially in the horde formation.
It is so big, because once you stuff up a combat, she's all over.
How do you use them? I mean, Thunder Charge 2 is okay, but they've also got bows. Do you move them forward shooting and then hope to run in? head
I
on?
think you've almost got to sit back, shoot, and wait.
Because the regiment footprint's not so bad. That's the same size of, or similar sizes to a large infantry
Yep,
horde.
yep. I think you got to sit back, wait, use an anvil, and then get in there.
Mm.
I really don't like the other chariots aren't too like elven chariots are okay.
They probably cost a bit more too.
Yeah, these guys just don't.
Because at
They haven't.
115 and 175 points, that's not breaking the bank by any stretch of the
Oh,
imagination.
they're not expensive, just better options, and the footprint is super big.
If you've got a lot of Tomb King chariots and you want to use them, take these guys. Make sure they have Pathfinder if you're taking a horde.
Nimble's not a bad one if you're going to go down that path, the big unit.
Yep, that works also.
You've still got to keep away from terrain, otherwise they're going to be slapping.
Yeah, that's why you take the Pathfinder.
Yeah, but there are other units that will compete for that as well.
I think this is low on the take list. If you're desperate for points and you want something that has the potential of doing some damage from and shoot occasionally, this skill
Plus
set
one
roll.
speed. Plus one speed's probably not a bad one.
Yeah, but again, there's other things that are competing.
I don't know. I just don't. I've used them a couple of times, and when combats don't work out, they just get charged in the flank, and it's all over.
I can see, like, if you've got a couple of characters with Surge and one of the dudes with the extra Surge spell, park these guys forward, pivot 90, so they're looking at the side of your opponent, and then Surge 20 if you can into the flank. That might be fun to watch, but I don't see these guys seeing much table time in any sort of effective list.
No, and the thing is, even if they do get in the flank, if the unit survives and they countercharge, you lose the best part of the chariot anyway. You lose the thunderous charge.
All over Red Rover. Defense 4.
Yeah,
They're not going to last.
no.
Nah.
So what I would say, I'd be taking regiments if I was going to use them. Sit back and shoot. Use like an anvil of revenants or mummies or something that can stick around, and try and angle them so you can get a flank charge with the chariots.
Yeah. You'd need to move these guys forward a little bit for that to happen.
Yeah.
Then you've got something in front of you as well.
Yeah. Now you're probably going to have to move them a wee bit anyway, so you can get in range to shoot as well.
So you're hitting on sixes with your 8
Yeah.
attacks.
Yep.
Sounds tops.
Yep.
Next.
Pass.
What do we got? Revenant Worm Riders. What kind of worms are they? Maybe I'll have to read the fluff in a sec. These are Regiment and Horde, as you'd expect. Speed 6, which isn't very fast, but they have melee 4, defense 5, which is good. Shining Light here is 12 and 24 attacks on the Horde, and as usual, the 14-17 Fearless Nerve. 135 and 210 points, so that's reasonably cost effective. Crushing 1, Thunder 1. So obviously punchy characters here. No range, decent defense, lots of attacks. Doesn't cost a whole lot. Crushing Thunder's good.
Yep.
These guys are good. Better than the chariots, I'd say. But
way better than the chariots.
if you need 40 points, drop from the Horde to the Horde, but then there's a huge footprint increase. These guys don't shamble, so that's something that you got to take note.
Yeah, they are only speed 6 though, so they're a bit slower.
So your +1 to speed might help here.
Yep.
I think that's a good choice, seeing as speed 6 is quite short, and there's a good chance of being charged first.
Yep. Yeah, either that, or if you've got a scavenger unit or something you can use to throw in front of them, even a troop of cavalry would work. Swarms are good with the vanguard, the initial vanguard move. Anything that will slow your opponent down slightly.
Yep.
Or get you the first charge rather than them the first charge.
Yep. Pathfinder's not as big a deal breaker here because they've still got crushing and they're melee 4, so I mean you don't want to be hitting on 5s, but it's not going to be the end of the world if they don't have it. Because if you take a couple of hordes like I would want to do, one of them's going to be missing out. Solid unit, 210 points.
Yep.
Go for it.
Yep. Very
Next.
good. We've moved into monsters.
Grr, monsters.
So we've got the Scorpion Husk. This guy is speed 6, melee 4 up, no ranged attack, defense 5, 8 attacks, fearless at 14 for the route, and 145 points. For that, you get crushing strength 2, shambling Vanguard, and Vicious.
These have a place. The Vanguard, that could help depending on certain armies. Defense 5, Crushing 2 is very good. Speed 6 is a bit naff though.
He's a bit slow.
Yeah. Just with my experience fighting against these things, it could just be the way that you're using them, but I find a couple of rounds of shooting and plink, they're gone. Especially if they're vanguarding, then they're going to be in range where everything else isn't.
Yep.
So,
Lower nerve.
Yeah. But there has been a few times where I've tried to punch them in the face and Defense 5 has helped. But that's probably because I'm doing it with things without any kind of...
Crushing your thumbs. Yeah.
145 points for a monster.
He's alright.
He's okay.
He's not brilliant, but he's not terrible.
I think the Vanguard's the probably key point there that you want to be building a list with.
Yep.
But since he's a monster, you can't really take any items. Let's move on to the next one.
Yep.
One of the Bone fellas. These guys, Bone Giant. Speed 7, melee 4, defense 5, like the other monster. Attacks, like the other giants, 1d6 plus 6. And he is Fearless 19 for 190 points. And that gives you Brutal, Crushing 3, Shamble, and Strider. So, a nice mix of giant there with the bonus of not being able to waver. Shambling to get into those flanks easier. Yeah, he's pretty good.
Strider's a handy little rule to have as well, I think. This guy, I kind of got to compare him to the one underneath him.
The
Behemoth.
Yeah, because it's the same cost.
Same cost. They do vary a little bit. I mean, you could take one of each if you really wanted to.
Well, how about we'll just run through the stats of the reanimated Behemoth now, and then we can talk about them in tandem.
Yep. So the Behemoth has speed 6, melee 4, no ranged attack, 6 up defense, 9 attacks, fearless 16 at 190 points. The base size does change for this guy. He's 50 by 100. Crushing strength 3, and he has shambling. You can also equip him with a light balefire catapult, range 36, indirect, 5 to hit, 1 attack, and it's blast D3 plus 2. It's piercing 1 with vicious. And that costs you 20 points.
Yeah. Now that range 5, that's not just 5 to hit, it's ranged 5, so if he moves it goes to 6 and
6s, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think the catapult is actually worth the 20 points.
No, I don't think so. It depends if you're taking more of a shooty list, then take it, because he's speed 6, so it'll take a couple of turns to get into combat. You might get really lucky and roll that 6 to hit something, but then it's only blast D3 plus 2, piercing 1, so nah.
Right, I mean, maybe if you're playing a gun line with a couple of catapults and the likes, then sitting him back and waiting.
And that kind of adds to theme as well.
Yeah.
Gives him something to do when he's not doing anything.
Yeah, I just think you could spend the 20 points better elsewhere. But anyway, comparing the two, Giant's slightly faster. The Giant's 1 less defense, but higher nerve. And the attacks, I don't know, could be less or
could round
more.
out the same, because if you halve the 1d6, then you've got a 9 with the plus 6.
Yeah.
So Behemoth has a more consistent output.
Yep.
He's not brutal though. Defense 6 is pretty good.
Defense 6 is good. Lower nerve still is worrying.
Yeah.
Another thing you've got to consider is the base size when you're a shambling unit as well.
Yes, you have to be careful of your pivots.
I don't know. And Strider is another one that gives a tick to the Bone Giant in my books.
So for our umming and ahhing, I would think that these are fairly close.
Oh,
so you can
definitely
take either
close.
without any worries. I would like to take both. I'll probably end up going the Bone Giant just because of the smaller footprint.
Yep.
But I had a pretty awesome looking Sphinx that I converted with some pretty magnificent wings, which I got rid of because I wasn't doing anything with them, which is a bit of a shame, but that's the hoarder in me. If you've got a cool unit, take him instead of the Giant. No harm done.
Yeah. He's definitely, the Behemoth's not bad. He's as good, I would say. I just think that the Bone Giant's a wee bit better, but that's me.
Let's zip over to second Bone fella, Bone Dragon. You're a fan of this one. You've named yours. How about you go through it?
I call mine Barry the Bone Dragon.
Bazza?
Bazza. He's a legend. He has speed 10, melee 4, no ranged attack, defense 4, 9 attacks. He's fearless at 17 for the route value, and he's 200 points. He's crushing strength 3, has fly and shambling.
Yes. So how have you found this guy since you've used him a fair bit?
At first, I didn't think much of him, mainly because he was getting shot up with defense 4 and wasn't really getting all that far. You start teaming him up with a winged pharaoh and surging him into flanks and stuff, he becomes quite good.
Yes.
Quite good.
It makes you think about what's going to happen.
Yeah. Speed 10 is big. With the fly ability, you can hang around the back of your army, jump over the top when it's time to push him into the flank, and go for it.
No at the double though, so your first turns are fairly slow, which I found like I can just zip 20 inches with my gargoyles behind dudes to get out of the way or into something I want. But having that pharaoh there is key. You can't have this guy out by himself because defense 4 just doesn't last.
And he doesn't have the movement to be alone either.
No. And he's a bit more expensive than the giant behemoth.
Yep.
Only 10 points more, but for a defense 4 fella, you want to protect him.
Yep. You're going to need to be surging him into combats most of the time, I'd be imagining. And you don't want to just flap him out into a combat.
Don't go head on.
No.
That is bad.
He doesn't work like a normal dragon.
No, he doesn't.
Because you'll have a very sad Barry the Bone Dragon if you do that.
Pile of bone dragon. Yeah.
It's very, very good, used well on flanks or jumping over the top of your own units and then surging in to a combined combat with another unit. Very good at doing that.
And going by our current meta, he's a flying monster, so you got to take him to win.
Yeah. So take a bone dragon.
That's right. Or 2. Barry and Betty bone dragons. Yeah. Alright, enough of that nonsense. Let's get into the war engines. Starting off with a Balefire catapult. It's fairly stock standard stuff here. Speed 5, range 5, defense 4, 1 attack, 11 nerve, which is fearless, and 100 points. It's a decent hitter in blast d6 plus 2, indirect piercing 2, reload, shambling, and vicious. So the vicious helps there. Like most catapults, take a couple for efficiency.
Yep.
When they hit, they hit. When they don't.
Pretty sure this is exactly the same as the undead one. I don't think there's any difference. Yeah. Take a few, otherwise it's probably not worth your time.
Yeah. If you've got 100 points, it's better off going somewhere else. Next,
we'll do the soul snare.
What is the soul snare?
It is. I don't even know what it is.
It's a
living
swirling
legend.
mystical energies of the soul snare float ominously above the ground, radiating malevolence. Ooh. Go on.
I'm guessing this is meant to be the casket takeoff. Anyway, this guy is speed 5, no melee attack, no ranged attack, defense 4, no attacks, fearless, 15 for the route, 150 points. For that you get heal 4, lightning bolt 6, reload, and stealthy.
A bit of a combi tool here because of the heal and lightning, and stealthy. So I would be keeping him just to the side of units, moving him forward with the rest of the army, healing and zapping things.
If you move, you can't shoot.
Because of reload.
Yeah.
So you just got to move up and then wait for the combat if you're going to be pushing forward, or sit back and shoot.
Yep. This thing used to be really OP in the beta, but it's changed a lot. I don't know if I'd actually take it
I think
it is.
Lightning 6 is pretty good, and heal 4, so just sit it on the 12-inch line, you're going to be able to hit most things. I think he's okay. Defense 4 is meh, but he's fearless 15, which is fairly high, especially for a war engine.
Lightning bolt's piercing 1, isn't it?
Yeah, and 24-inch range.
So that's not too bad, I guess. It's alright.
I enjoy Lightning Bolt in high numbers, and this is it. So I'd be taking this guy if I could for some long-range shooting, coupled with your Guardian Archers, maybe a couple of catapults. This gives you a decent amount of range. Heal 4 is also pretty good.
Yeah, if everything's in combat and you can't shoot anything, the heal's okay.
So you just got to be careful of flying characters or War Machine Hunters, because they're not going to be shooting at it because of the stealthy. There's not much point doing that. So you just got to make sure that it doesn't get into combat.
Or those super quick vanguarding first turn charges if you're going to put it on the 12-inch line.
Yeah, He's alright.
Yeah.
Next.
Next.
The Monolith. This is a weird war engine, bit of a support piece more than anything. This has no speed, no melee, no ranged, no attacks, defense 5, fearless 18, and only 80 points. This guy, he is advanced deployment. The base is 75 by 75 mil, so a bit of a weirder size there. And you can't increase it with your exceptional base sizes, so no gaming the system and trying to make a 15 by 15 block. This is height 4 and inspiring, which is key, and anyone within 6 inches of the monolith that is friendly and non-allied, they get +2 to their spells. So if you're Surge 8, it goes to Surge 10, Lightning 6 goes to Lightning 8, so on and so forth. Pure support piece.
Yep.
Inspiring and spell buff.
I'll just read the advanced deployment rule, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
Units with this rule must be deployed immediately after players have chosen sides, but before any other units are deployed. If both players have one or more units with this rule, then the player who chose the table side sets theirs up first.
So you're making sure your army revolves around this.
You have to if you're going to take it.
Yeah. So you have to think about where you're putting it in terms of you having it straight up the front, and making sure that there's enough room on the sides for your blocks to still get the inspiring or any wizards to be able to shoot, or if you pop it a little bit further back from the 12-inch and having units in front of it, and I think in that case you're sitting and waiting for the opponent to come to you.
Yep.
Good if you're taking a lot of spellcasters.
Yeah, the extra surge is going to be handy. If I was going to take it, I would be taking a pretty aggressive army that was going to move forward quite a bit. I'd be placing that. The monolith, similar to how we described the Night Stalker one, the portal.
Mm-hmm.
So try and keep it protected a little bit if you can. And then get your mages around it to get the full effect of its ability.
So this is also a living legend, so you can only take one of them, because otherwise that'd be bodge. 80 points for an inspiring spell buff fella.
Yeah, it's a really odd unit. I think you've really got to think about how you're going to use it if you're going to put it in your list.
Pretty good modelling opportunities, because you can have a larger base, height 4, so it's this big, fairly impressive monolith. Could make your army look nice.
I was just thinking you could hide your big Gribbly behind it until he gets a bit close.
Yeah. Yes, that is something you could do. It'll cover your big Gribblies.
Before I was saying just hide it somewhere, and now I'm saying hide the big monster behind the big tower thing or whatever it is. The monolith.
Well, it's defense 5, fearless 18.
Yeah, it'll take a bit of a beating before it goes down.
Yeah. Alright, we're into characters now.
First one is the Revenant Champion. This guy is speed 5, melee 4, no ranged attack, defense 5, 4 attacks, fearless at 14 for route and 85 points. He's crushing strength 1, individual, and he's inspiring to Revenants only. And you also have the options to put him on a mount, so he can increase his speed to 8, and he changes to a hero cav for 15 points.
Yeah, he's okay.
He's alright.
Individual inspiring, Revenants only, but there's a fair few Revenant units. Revenants on foot and on worms. You've got chariots. We've also... No, that's it.
He's very average. I'd never be able to find the points in a list for him. Maybe if I was going heavy Revenant, he'd be worthwhile.
Crushing 1, 4 attacks, defense 5.
He's just very okay.
Yeah, it's very, very okay. Items, he's a hard one, because he's not super offensive.
Nah, I would be keeping him as cheap as possible.
Yeah.
I mean, you can put him on a horse if you want to.
Depending on your list, just to keep up. But don't expect him to be winning games.
I just wonder, like, for the 85 points you're paying for him, I know he's got a few attacks and he inspires Revenants only, but would you be better off just taking an army standard bearer for 50 points?
Then the standard bearer is forced into the non-combat role. At least this guy can hit with 4 attacks, if he needs to.
He's only hitting on 4s.
Yeah, it's okay. It's not 5s. 85 points, yeah. I'd be putting him on a horse if I'm taking lots of cav. if I'm taking blocks of Revenants.
Yeah, blocks of Revenants, or well, if you're going to take Worm Riders, the next guy's probably a bit more relevant. But
If you just want the inspiring, then obviously you just go the cheaper option.
Yep.
At least this guy can punch stuff.
yeah, no, you can do a little bit.
Yeah, I wouldn't do much to him in terms of items.
Nah,
Alright, let's give him a worm instead of a mount. That costs 135. Revenant Champion on worm gives speed 6, so he's a little bit faster. Melee 4 still the same, defense 5 still the same, 7 attacks instead of 4. The nerve is the same, fearless 14. In addition to the crushing 1, he is thunderous 2, still only inspiring revenants, and he's no longer individual, so flanks count. And being flanked counts.
yeah,
Maybe the better option if you want to go punchy.
yeah, he's all right.
Because crushing 1, thunder 2 with 7 attacks is not bad. That's pretty good.
Yeah, he's. I don't mind this guy. Losing individual hurts a little bit.
Yeah, in terms of being shot at, but hide him behind your cav until he's needed.
Yeah. The other thing is, at 135 points, it compares to the point cost of a Revenant Worm regiment as well.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you get difference? You get a couple of extra attacks.
The inspiring,
And the inspiring, and
which
the extra,
is the key thing there, I think.
and the extra thunderous by the looks.
Yeah, so thunder 2 instead of 1.
Okay.
So there are reasons to take him.
No, he's not bad.
Yeah.
I think he's better than the normal Revenant champion.
Mm-hmm.
Because at least if he makes a combat, he'll do something. Unlike the Revenant champion on foot or horse, whichever one you take, this guy will get extra attacks for charging flanks or rears. Magic items?
You could go defensive because this guy is going to be more frontline since he's more punchy. So if you had no other characters that needed saving, the extra defense would help.
Yep.
I wouldn't add extra crushing because I don't see the point.
No.
I wouldn't give him Pathfinder either because of his small footprint. You should be able to avoid anything there. I wouldn't give him any spells, Elite or Vicious if no one else had it. Maybe...
That's what I was thinking.
Brutal.
Elite or Vicious is probably one of the better two for him.
If he's combo charging, Brutal might help.
Yep.
Just make sure he combo charges because you don't want him running in by himself because he probably won't last.
No. +1 speed might be another one if you haven't used it already.
Yep. I wouldn't keep him faster than the Worm Riders that I would be protecting with or inspiring. Yep. I'd want to keep them all at the same speed.
Yeah, keep him in the same spot. Just means if there is a longer charge required from him, he might be able to make it is all. Yeah, I don't think I'd give him much else.
No, sounds good. Next. Everyone's favourite Ammonite Pharaoh. This guy is a teeny tiny hero. Infantry, speed 5, melee 3, which is pretty boss. Defense 6, which is pretty boss. 5 attacks, which is pretty boss for a little fella. Fearless 16 at 155 points. Added on to his deliciousness of stats there, crushing 2, individual, inspiring, regen 5, and surge 8. He is a Swiss Army knife in a Swiss Army knife.
He is a bomb.
Most people take him with the flying boots, so he can fang into dudes with defense 6 and really not really give any poops. Defense 6, fearless 16, regen 5.
Yep.
It's pretty tough.
He is pretty good.
Without the wings, what role do you see him playing?
He's pretty slow.
I would also consider the boots of levitation.
So I can march or go at the double and cast.
That's right.
Yeah, that's not a bad one.
That's just to make sure that your casting's in the right position to push in the right direction.
Yeah. Yep. If you're keeping him on foot, extra surge could be handy, but it's probably better off on a priest. +1 regen, but
that's if you really don't want him going anywhere. Just increasing that mobility.
Yeah, probably wouldn't use anything other than wings, but that's a common thing. Everyone does it.
Which means it's not good.
No.
If it's +1, it's not good. There shouldn't be any +1s in the game.
Yeah, shouldn't be.
No.
So let's put him on a chariot instead of giving him wings.
For like any good Ammonite Pharaoh should. What happens there?
So he goes up in speed to 7, same melee, lower defense. He's gone down to 5+ because he's on a chariot.
Because he's easy to hit.
Yep. He
he gets an extra 2 attacks for having street cred,
Yeah.
and he goes to.
He's got
the same
ponies.
nerve.
Ponies on the chariot. They
Yeah.
add to the attacks.
Same nerve, and he goes up in points to 195. You also have to give him a bigger base,
Chariot
50
base.
by 100. Yep. He's crushing strength 2, inspiring regen 5, surge 8, but he also gets thunderous charge 1.
So he punches a bit better. He is no longer individual. So any flanks are going to be much more effective. He's
Yep.
fairly punchy in that respect.
I think he's pretty good.
I don't know about the surge. I think if you're fighting, you're not surging, and you can't just change facing like the dude on foot can.
Yeah, that's the problem with the pharaohs. If you've committed to a combat, you're not going to be able to surge.
He's far more balanced than what he was in the beta, because I remember playing against the beta version, and that was a pain in the neck. Because I think he was defense 6 also, wasn't he?
I think he was, yeah. I think he got nerfed in the.
So he was super tough and super punchy, and it was a nightmare. So
and then you gave him the +1 regen, and he was even more awesome.
Yeah, hated that guy. Good thing he's gone. This guy, yeah, you don't often see him because most people take the flying fella.
Yeah.
But I've got a pretty fancy painted Cetra model, which I would love to use, but I don't have the army anymore. I've just got that one figure. If you've got a fancy figure, use it. I want to see more of them on the table.
He's certainly not bad.
Yeah, he's alright.
Comes down to your army composition.
If you have fairly mobile or cav heavy, this guy could probably fit in. He could replace one of the hordes or regiments.
Yep.
I'd rather take this guy instead of the horde of chariots.
So as would I. Yep. Magic items on this guy.
As we discussed, maybe defense 6 if no one else is worth putting it on.
Yep.
Extra hitting's always good. Maybe a lead on this guy, it makes his punching better and his surges work better.
+1 regen. +1 regen still works for him.
+1 regen works for him. A few choices there.
Yep.
I wouldn't put anything else on him.
No, I don't think there's much point putting anything else on him. Move on to the next one.
Next one, we have the Cursed High Priest. He's like a High Priest, but cursed. Speed 5, melee 5 defense for 1 attack. Nerve 13 fearless. 120 points. Individual inspiring, which is pretty good for a mage. Surge 10, which is better than the other fellas. And he's got a swathe of options. Heal 4 for 15 points, or you can swap Surge for heal, and you get that for free. Wind Blast for points, Breath 12, and Vicious for 20 points, which is a nice little combo. Put him on a pony for speed 8 for 15 points, and that also changes his class, I guess, from Hero Infantry to Hero Cav, as you would expect.
Yep.
If you're doing a lot of surging, take this guy. If you want a lot of healing, take these guys. I'd probably take 2.
Yeah, try and squeeze 2 in to most armies.
I do like the idea of putting him on a horse and then giving him breath.
Yeah.
That's not a huge point investment for someone who runs about breathing bad breath on people. Cursed breath.
Good for getting rid of pesky gargoyles, things that flap about around behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't know how else. What else are you going to breathe at? I suppose stuff. The other thing you can do, like the other undead, is breathe on something and then surge with another caster into that unit.
So you could give this guy the boots of levitation if you're putting on a pony. That would work. Or you could do the double cast for a turn.
Yeah. I don't know about the one-off thing. I mean, it's going to be very situational.
It is, but it's cheaper. I probably wouldn't take Wind Blast.
Wind Blast seems kind of pointless.
That's what you take your Guardians for.
Yeah.
Not for their combat ability, but for the Wind Blast.
Heal 4. I used to take heal on these guys, and it's good, but it's only heal 4.
Yeah. Heal 4 is better than most. Usually it's heal 3, or in the nature one, it's heal 2. I think if you're taking a higher defense army, heal's probably the way to go, because it just makes the defense 5 and 6s more annoying to deal with. So slave guardians, mummies, revenants, heals, not a bad choice.
Yep.
I think maybe if you're taking a couple of the reanimated behemoths, they've got life leech and now they've got heal 4 backing them up.
Certainly not bad, just not overly brilliant. I suppose it depends. If all your units are in close combat, you can keep them keep them going, which is good. Gives you a bit of choice. It's just whether you're willing to spend the points
Yeah.
and how much you're going to kit them out.
Yeah, you don't want to spend them too much because then they make them juicy targets. So you take 1 or 2 options, at the most 2 options.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alright.
The other thing, I try to keep these guys on horses, mainly because at speed 5, if something does get behind you, the priests are generally the juiciest target because they're
You want them to get away.
yeah, they're an inspiring source. So if you kill that,
Yes.
then you're in a bit of trouble.
That makes them easier targets for magic though, because they'll be sitting up behind infantry, so you have to keep behind cav or behind
Large infantry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So keep that in mind when you're thinking about putting them on horses. And it's only 15 points for extra speed, so
Yep.
if you can do it. Alright, we'll
Magic
drop down
items?
to...
Do you want to do magic items on him first?
Haven't we discussed that?
No, you just did.
Yeah, I
the
was talking about the
options.
boots, or
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I would
elite
put
might
the
work if you go on super spell heavy.
extra surge for me is one that I would put on, and it's not to do a stupid long surge.
But it can. Can
It
be.
can. It can. For me, it's more so about guaranteeing a surge to make it. Because
Right.
I roll like a muppet.
If you roll poorly, sure.
So if I need 5 inches to surge into something, I'll probably need about 20 dice to get it.
That's a long surge for you, 5 inch. Yeah,
It is.
unlikely. I mean, normally you'd be hoping 2 or 3 inches at the most, and then surge 10 you think you should be okay, but unless
Yeah.
that's you.
Yeah, unless it's me.
Yeah.
All right, move on to the next one.
Alright, the cheap fella, Undead Army Standard Bearer. Speed 5, melee 5, defense 4, 1 attack. The wavering, no, so he's fearless, 13. 50 points. Individual inspiring shambling, and you can put him on a pony for 15 points. This guy, oh, watch out. Give him the crystal of blowing up.
It's not as stupid as it sounds.
Well, it is, because he's defense 4 and now 13.
Yeah, but he's only 50 points.
And that puts it up to 100 points for something that's going to get shot off and explode.
Yeah, it's true. I played Stacks Thursday night.
Yeah.
And he used that bomber item on a Dwarf Ranger captain.
The difference there is Vanguard.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Well,
not
if you
shambling.
Got him on a horse, he might get there. But all he did was plonk him in front of a unit, and I couldn't do anything about it except try and burn him.
Mm-hmm.
And he just got in the way and stopped me. So, I mean,
It's probably not going to happen with the Army Bearer because he's nerve 13 and he's only speed 8 shambling, so he's not getting there in a hurry.
Yeah, it doesn't mean he has to go out straight in front. You could be playing a gunline army, skip back, and then just go over the top.
Healing item or grenades or boomstick.
I'm tempted to try the bomb.
Do it. Do it. I want to see him explode. That'd be hilarious, and we'll film it.
I don't think it does anything when you get shot at.
No, but in my head it does.
Oh, okay.
Slow motion and... Anyway, yeah.
Let's move on.
Yeah. Idol of Shobik. Legendary fella. So this hero is a monster. Speed 7, melee 3, defense 6, 10 attacks, ELS 18 at 350 points. He's got a few rules though. The aura of Shobik, because he's so cool, he's got his own aura. All friendly non-allied units within 6 have the Iron Resolve special rule, which is pretty sweet. He is a stomper with crushing 4. He also has heal 6. Shambles, he strides, and he's very inspiring. Biggin, you've taken it a few times, what do you think?
He's pretty good. He's very expensive. You got to be very careful.
Expensive.
Very expensive. Good for keeping your big units hanging around, like your enslaved guardians. It'd be good, really, really good in an infantry-based army, I think, where you can use your bubble to mass effect.
And healing, keeping them alive, and then Iron Resolve to make sure that they're healing. And very inspiring, so it just kind of forces that big bubble.
Yep.
And if need be, run in and punch things in the head, which is what I do in the last few turns.
Just don't get too ambitious with him like I have a couple of times.
Yeah.
Because he just dies.
Yeah, in the last few turns, run him out and punch things.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you just take a giant if you're after that, and he's 150 points cheaper, 160 points cheaper.
Yep. No, I quite like the idol. He's kind of cool. Bit different.
yeah, that $350 price tag is probably out of my range, unless I'm tailoring a list around this guy. Because if I'm
You
taking
kind
him,
of
I've
have to.
got to protect him at all costs
Yep.
and make sure that his rules work to the best of their abilities.
Hmm.
But I've always been afraid of him when he was on the table, because 10 crushing 4 attacks, hitting on 3s, yeah.
And because he's shambling too, you can pivot him and shamble into units that get behind or in your flank or whatever as well. So
And he's
he's
got the
quite
speed 7 to move into that position.
he's quite a versatile unit.
He's a good
Hmm.
Can't take any items with him.
No.
How about we discuss if there's any allies that you would take with this army?
Well, what do you think it lacks?
It lacks probably some fairly reliable high-speed punch. How about you take some vampire knights from the army of Undead?
Yep. Soul Revocav
Yeah,
or what are the other ones called? Revenant Cavalry, is it?
they are. Yep,
Yeah.
which would be better than the skeleton cav.
Yeah. Oh, way better.
But I would take either of those. I don't think it's missing much else. You got 2 levels of shooting with your archers and who's it? Guardian archers.
I think
In
shooting's pretty well covered in this list. I don't think you need to worry about shooting. Enslaved Guardian Archers are pretty much the exact same as the Ogre Shooter equivalent. Is that what they're called? Ogre Shooters?
ogre shooters, yeah.
Yeah.
Whites might be an idea for a more solid punching large infantry unit. I mean,
Yep.
Guardian archers do have crushing 2, but whites are 3.
Yeah. Breaking up.
Wraiths for flying. But the only thing is, with all of these undead allies, you're going to be wanting to take characters to support them.
Yeah, that's the problem.
So you get
Yeah.
one unit in a character, maybe 2 units if they're small.
Yep.
So if we're not going undead, what else are we taking?
If you don't want to spend your points on inspiring characters, go down the Night Stalker route. I mean, you could go Nightmares for speed. They're quite quick. Even Fiends. Fiends are super quick.
Yes, they are. They're pretty good.
Mm.
You don't want to outpace the rest of the
List. Yeah, that's the problem. I think you go from one extreme to the other, it's not going to help.
I reckon the Ogre Boomers would be a pretty good choice. These are the guys that follow the rest of your army. I mean, their speed is decent and they've got a breath weapon. So they're shooting over the heads of other things because they're a bit taller.
What's their breath attack?
It's the
How
same
many
as
shots?
the rest of the horde, so it'll be 918, I'm pretty sure, with the piercing.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, it's probably not a bad option.
Yeah, that's what I would go. Just thinking of the other lists. If you want a lot of drops, maybe take some cheap goblins that can clog up the rest of the opponents while you aim for flanks.
Yep. Ratkin would do the same thing as goblins.
Yep.
Cheap units. If I suppose artillery from another army might be an idea.
Yeah, but we just went over that. We didn't really need the extra shooting.
Yeah.
There's not a lot that they're missing out on. Yeah. I think that's it.
Anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So that's the army in a couple of different nutshells. How about we go through lists that we've written? Example lists that we think are good, I guess. How about you go through yours first?
Okay. So here is my 2,000 point list. I haven't played this one yet, but have played very similar lists in the past. So I have a regiment of mummies with the casket. I have a horde of enslaved guardians with the casket and blessing of the gods. Then I have the enslaved guardian archers. I have a horde of them with the +1 to hit. 2 regiments of swarms. 1 horde of worm riders.
Yep.
1 bone giant.
Yep.
1 bone dragon.
Yep.
The pharaoh with wings.
Of course.
I've got a cursed high priest on foot because I didn't have enough points to put him on a horse.
Dude misses out.
Yeah. And what does he have? He has breath attack 12
He doesn't
and
have
vicious.
a pony, that's what.
And surge. Yeah, he doesn't have a pony, that's for sure. But his friend does. He has a pony and he has breath attack 12 and vicious, and he's also got the extra surge, so he goes to surge 14, I think it is.
If it gives it
4?
an extra 4, yep.
I think it's +4. I'll have a look.
Pretty
But anyway,
good. So
yeah, it's an extra 4.
bit of a mixed bag list.
Yep.
What do you think it's doing?
Mummies, enslaved guardians, generally are the middle line for me, backed up by worm riders. The swarms usually sit in front of the mummies, and the enslaved Guardians, or alternatively, I would put a unit in front of the Worm Riders. Bone Giant's also another supporting unit. The Bone Dragon usually pairs up with the Pharaoh for flank surge attacks. Worm Riders can do a similar thing. They could be with the Pharaoh and the Bone Dragon if they wanted to be, or on the opposite flank.
The only issue with those Worm Riders is speed 6.
Yeah, so that's why I think I'd have to keep them close to the middle.
Yeah.
Comes down, I don't know, if there's an objective I want to take, maybe I could hang them out. I might force the opponent to put something down on the side of the table and then go back the other way. I don't know. I don't know. There's a few things I think I could do with the Worm Riders. I need to play with them a bit more. I think they're quite an interesting unit.
Yes.
But that's my 2,000 point list. I need to play test it and try and squeeze some more things in there if I can.
See what you can drop.
Yeah. What about you?
A bit of a different list. I've gone fairly Revenant heavy, starting off with 2 regiments of Revenants. One of them has the Scrying Gem, because I like that item. Then I've got the Enslaved Guardian Archers with the Brew of +1, because 2 regiments of Scavengers. Like I was saying previously, I would use these as I use my current Dwarf Gargoyles, getting in the way of things and maybe flying over the top of things on occasion. But these guys will probably sit in front of the Worm Riders or trying to stop other opponents charging into my 2 hordes of Worm Riders. One has the Blessing of the Gods, the other has Chant of Hate, so Elite and Vicious both. One or the other. Obviously, punchy. They are going to be coupled with a Revenant Champion on Worm, and these got the Pipes of Terror for the Brutal. These should all be going in together. A Soul Snare will be sitting near the Revenants and zapping things and healing if need be. If I'm in range, like if I get first turn, I'll probably move him forward first, because he's not going to be shooting anything. And that move plus the heal should be in range for any combats that happen turn 3 or 4. Floating around by himself is going to be the Bone Giant. He'll probably take some shots, distract from the Worm Riders, hopefully. And I've got a Revenant Champion who's going to try and add some extra wounds with the Revenants. So if someone comes in to the Revenants to try and take them out, the Revenant Champion adds a couple of crushing strength hits, which the Revenants don't have. He's also got the healing charm, so when he's not doing anything there, he can try and heal. And lastly, I've got a Cursed High Priest on horse. He has the Breath Attack 12 and Vicious upgrade, and I've given him the Boots of Levitation, so he's less inspiring, more running around burning things, so marching 16 turn, burn. 16 turn, burn, 16 turn, burn, and then maybe die. His defense 4 and 13 wavering is not great. But from experience with my Bizzle Dwarfs, with my Ironcaster on Flying Mount, with essentially the same kit, with the Breath Attack's probably not as good, that worked well. This guy's cheaper.
If they're shooting at him, they're not shooting at the rest of your army anyway.
Yeah, it's probably not worth shooting at, unless, if there's a few different a few different targets here that are worth shooting at. So you solid block with the Revenants, and then you've got the fairly punchy dudes on Worms, backed up by the Scavengers to make sure they get the charge, Guardian Archers to make sure people stay honest and make sure they come to me. And the Soul Snare does a bit of both with the healing and life and Lightning Bolt. I didn't know what to do with 190 points, if I wanted the Bone Giant or the Behemoth. I thought Bone Giant because of his smaller footprint.
That's one of the big selling points for me. You gotta be very careful with that Behemoth, I think.
Yeah, I'll have to write a couple of lists. I'm never going to play with these things. I've sold my army. What am I talking about? Unless I borrow yours.
Mine.
But I think they're quite different, those armies, apart from the Guardian Archers with the Brew of Always Take. How do you think this army goes as a whole?
I think it's not too bad at all, really. You're gonna hold a lot of things up for quite a bit of time, and I think that's what you need. So your Worm Riders and the likes can get in flanks or support a combat that they need to get into. You got enough shooting to take down annoying little chaff units. As you said, you've got that guy on the horse with the burning ability, and it doesn't mean he has to burn every turn. If you need a combat, he can surge unit in.
And he's still inspiring.
Yeah, so you've got a lot of multi-role units, which is good. Got
to cover all the bases. And as army in itself, the Empire of Dust as a whole. What do you think?
Love it. I think it's probably my favourite army.
Well, you do have a lot of those figures.
I did have a lot, sold a lot, and then bought a lot.
And I think it's quite a bit different from Undead. I mean, it's the second flavour of Undead, but it looks quite different. I mean, you don't have the zombies, you don't have a lot of the different monstrous infantry or you got war machines and
Yeah, don't have super heavy cav or anything like that, but that's not really the end of the world.
quite a bit different.
I prefer them over normal undead, but that's just me.
Yeah, that is
The
just
flavour.
It's your kind of flavour.
Yeah.
Bit of a curry instead of, say, a chicken with soy sauce on it. I don't know. I think we'll leave it there.
Yeah.
Alright, that's the Empire of Dust. Let us know what you think. Let us read some of your emails. We'll like your words. Like the Facebook page. Getting a bit more traffic there and seeing a few pictures of people's armies, which look pretty cool, and yeah, work in progress, which is always exciting to see. And I think we'll leave it there. Yeah.
Yep.
Alright, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next cast.
Bye.
Yeah, direct misfire blowing up the game. Talking many war games is our aim. From rulebooks to advice, we cover it all. With the best tactics, we never fall. Bensome and Spoon are your hosts every vid. Misfiring, but aiming up ahead. Comment, like, and subscribe today, keeping you notified and up to date. Come check us out at facebook.com/directmisfire or shoot us over an email at directmisfire@gmail.com.